This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to this week's episode of the DocNJock Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Adam the Jock Strozinski. On today's show, I know I say it every week, but there's a lot to get into. Like, we are on the road to WrestleMania. There's a ton of news and notes. There's a lot of rumors going on. We've got major news for John Cena possibly taking place at SummerSlam. There is a reported push for this WWE superstar, as well as these former WWE wrestlers who were credited with being part of the women's revolution in WWE have stepped away from WWE, as well as what the hell's actually going on with Pat McAfee. We've got all of that later on in the show. Of course, we're going to take a look at what's going on with AEW, and Raw left us with a whole lot to chew on this week. And I think Monday Night Raw and I think SmackDown has basically been dominated by Cody Rhodes, Kevin Owens, and Sami Zayn, and how they're integrating into this bloodline storyline. And I think it's absolutely fantastic. And of course, breaking it all down with me, he's the one, he's the only, he is the Doc John Macaroon. What's up, cuz?
Yeah, cuz it was a great week of professional wrestling. Even AEW stepped it up, giving us a tease maybe of a faction reuniting. Everything that went down this week had some intrigue and had some involvement regarding WrestleMania. So I'm happy. I'm thrilled. There was a botch with a big name star, obviously, with Brock Lesnar and Omos, but we'll talk about that as well. Look, every buildup can't be perfect, but at the very least, what we can say is the stuff that we're seeing is compelling. It's nice to watch. And cuz 2 weeks away from WrestleMania, this is crazy. It's coming up quick.
It really is. I didn't even realize that we were this close to WrestleMania until I was watching SmackDown on Friday night, and they're like, we're 2 weeks away. And I'm like, holy shit, we are like 2 weeks away. And I think that's why you're starting to see a lot of these stories cross over. What we're getting on Monday Night Raw is crossing over on SmackDown and vice versa. And really and truly, like I said, this week was really highlighted by Cody Rhodes. Everything really seemed to center around him. And then it went a little bit tangent with Kevin Owens and with Sami Zayn. And I wanted to get your review, what you felt, how you perceived his promo, Cody Rhodes' promo after his match with LA Knight, because he came out and he spit fire again. And I think what you're seeing with this build is you don't necessarily have to have that physicality. Like, Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes haven't gotten physical with each other one time. They haven't come to blows yet. This whole build for this WrestleMania main event has been done through a microphone. It has basically been through Cody Rhodes working with Paul Heyman by proxy. Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns have basically been in the ring one time. Cody Rhodes and members of the Bloodline working by proxy. The only physicality that we've actually had has been last week when Cody Rhodes and parts of the Bloodline mixed it up a little bit. That's been it. We really haven't had any of that physicality to get us to that next level. And look, that physicality was sprinkled in at just the right time. Really did help ratchet it up a notch. But this entire build has been through these guys working on the microphone. And Cody Rhodes, again, on Monday night, cuts another promo, very passionate, very just fire basically coming out of him. What did you make of his promo?
It was fantastic. Very passionate. Oh, my God. It kind of lent to the idea of Cody showing Roman a lot of respect, but the passion, the vision, the idea that I need to have this title, I need to do something to validate what I'm doing in this business. And the blessing is you don't really need the physicality. I'm excited to see what these two are going to do on Raw because they are going to come together one more time. So Cody is just holding up his own, and that's all you can say is you can put Cody into the main event of WrestleMania, and then you can weave him also into storylines that are taking place on television. At first, you would have thought, well, does he need to really be involved with Does he need to be involved with Sami and Kevin Owens? But when you saw what he was able to do, it kind of is really old school wrestling. Faces do positive things. They bring people together. They kind of organize things in a positive way to defeat the bad guys. So he's been doing great. And boy, when you invest in an MVP player, that's what a top star looks like. And Cody's morphing into it right in front of our eyes.
Absolutely. He has become the baby face of WWE right now. And this, again, like you said, what he's doing is he's bringing other people together. He's doing babyface things. Well, one of the things that had me a little bit surprised because it went a little bit against what a babyface usually does. Kevin Owens, still kind of mopey, still kind of pouty, ends up cutting a promo in the back telling Cody Rhodes to stay away from his match against Solo Sikoa no matter what. No matter what happens, he doesn't want him interfering. And Cody Rhodes obliges. He actually stays away. He doesn't come to the aid of Kevin Owens when you knew what was going to happen. You knew that the numbers were going to overtake Kevin Owens. They were going to beat him down. This surprised me. I was shocked by this because, like you said, babyfaces do what babyfaces do, and they do babyface things. The babyface thing would have been for Cody Rhodes to come out and help intervene and help save Kevin Owens, even though Kevin Owens told him to stay away. Did this shock you at all? Because as we went off the air on Monday night, it was basically the bloodline standing tall. Kevin Owens laid out in a ring, and Cody Rhodes was nowhere to be found.
I was surprised a little bit, but at the same time, you got to establish why Kevin Owens might potentially need some help. He got his ass kicked. I thought the visual, you don't see it too often, of two dudes dragging a wrestler from the top of the stage to the ring was pretty sweet. You got Kevin Owens, and he's not a small guy, and you got the Bloodline, the Usos, dragging his ass to the ring. I thought it was great. Look, man, the other thing you got to say is whatever, evolves with Jay and Jimmy and Roman, keep an eye on Solo, man. The dude has something that's special when you say, okay, he has the enforcer look. He's serious enough. You have that intrigue. That dude can seriously be, it's a perfect fit if you had a television title, if you had a intercontinental/international title that was featured on Raw. He is perfect for an enforcer role, and man, I can't wait to see what comes of him, whether he fights, and every week now you're seeing it's against Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, maybe one time it'll be against Cody Rhodes. The bigger feuds are coming Solo's way, so I'm excited to see that as well. But, man, the writing for Cody and the Bloodline, naturally you can kind of surmise how it could go, but even though there's an opportunity to see and to understand the behind the scenes and understand how this is going, it's still intriguing, and that's the mark of great storytelling, which is Jimmy on SmackDown talking it over, Jay talking it over with Sami, and then having the reunion. Just WWE has done a masterful job at the top end of taking the story and keep adding the layers that make it that make it special and intriguing.
Yeah, this whole thing is really like an onion, right? You just keep peeling it back, and there's one layer after another. And here's a little tidbit about Solo Sikoa. They're really high on Solo Sikoa. WWE is very high in Solo Sikoa. He has been protected in a lot of matches. If you've noticed, he's basically run through guys. He's not taken a pin yet, and they believe that he is being put on a similar pedestal as Roman Reigns, right? Like they feel he is the future. He is the guy who is going to kind of pick that ball up and he's going to run with it. So watch for him. He's been incredibly protected, and they will continue to protect him. And the thought is, this is more or less a Dave Meltzer putting it in the air. Meltzer has speculated that they believe Solo Sikoa will be the one to basically go up against Roman Reigns and be the one who completely decimates the Bloodline when it's all said and done. Don't know when it's going to happen, but that's just some speculation, a little bit of rumor, a little bit of innuendo. We'll mix it in right here. But you kind of touched on it. All of this ended up rolling into Friday night on SmackDown. You talked about how Cody Rhodes brought people together, brought Sami Zayn, brought Kevin Owens together. They're in the ring. Kevin Owens doesn't want to be there. Sami's basically like, look, man, I've told you everything I can tell you. You haven't given me anything. I don't know what else I can do. I know that we've really screwed things up, but we've got to try to make this better. I think the one nugget, the one thing that made me sit up in my seat, and look, I'll be honest with you, a lot of times when I watch wrestling, I'm dicking around on my phone. It's on, and I'm like half paying attention, right? If something's really going to catch my eye, that's the only way it's making it to this rundown. Cody Rhodes cut a promo with Kevin Owens and basically let you in on a little secret. Let you in on that when Cody Rhodes was featured endeavored from WWE, it was Kevin Owens who had his back. It was Kevin Owens who introduced him to the Young Bucks. It's because of Kevin Owens introducing Cody Rhodes to those guys that we now have AEW. Kevin Owens is incredibly important to the history of AEW, and you got to hear about it on SmackDown, on WWE programming, on Friday night. I thought that was awesome. Like, that made me sit up. I stopped everything. I had to rewind the DVR, and I jumped back into that promo, and I was like, holy cow, that is awesome. It's just like little things that none of us really knew, right? Like things that were kind of discussed in a few of our rumor segments, but you got confirmation, and that was awesome. This promo between them, bringing them together, and then what you had kind of transpire in the back where Kevin Owens drove off on Sami Zayn, it really did add to this story, right? And you kind of knew how it was going to end, because in the end, Kevin Owens comes back. He makes the save on Sami Zayn when Sami Zayn and Jey Uso are in the ring, but you kind of knew. What did you think of this initial promo to kind of start the night out? Because there was another promo that we ended up getting later on. There was a lot of promos this week. There was another promo that we got later on between Sami Zayn and Jey Uso that I want to kind of jump into and kind of tear that apart a little bit. But what did you think of this promo, specifically between Cody Rhodes and Kevin Owens?
Yeah, it was special. It was great. You saw the angst of Kevin Owens not wanting to be there. You saw Sami making the case, pleading like, look, we don't even have to be friends. We just have a common mission. And then they add to it with Kevin Owens being outside and Sami saying, look, whatever happens in this, I love you and all that kind of stuff. Really, in the end, it's tough because everybody knows they're friends. So it's tougher to build the reasons. I think maybe Kevin could have gave different reasons, like really be a little more emotional, saying, look, you hurt me, man. You broke the trust. Like, you chose that over what we've had, all the ups and the downs, the travels we did, all the talks that we had. You chose a quick path to success because you got attention from a liar. How did you not know? How did you throw that away? You could have upped Kevin's emotionality, but in the end, dude, Kevin Owens is over, and it's been great to involve him as well. And to see the involvement now, you got basically what's great is you got Cody getting the rub off of Sami and Kevin, and Sami and Kevin are getting the rub off of the storyline with the bloodline. So everybody is rising up. It's very intriguing, and you can have so many matches, so many intriguing. But the problem is, okay, and we've joked about it in the last 100 episodes. Where does it go now that Sami and Kevin work together? Do you have them become tag teams and take on the Usos at WrestleMania? Okay, because inevitably WWE likes to break up their tag teams, but Sami and Kevin have fought like 2,000 times. So the question would be, where would it go? Would it involve just going through and having a 5-year run together? I see Sami and Kevin being great, maybe in both, maybe just having a solid run as a tag team and being singles competitors. But it just lends to wondering. Well, first and foremost, if you keep it in the present, everybody wants to see Sami and Kevin take the titles off of the Usos. It's just going to be a nice pop. It'll be a pop moment at WrestleMania if they end up going down that direction. It needs to happen. So whatever happens after that, that'll be the questions that keep people intrigued. But man, it was special. It was special. And Cody being the facilitator is great. I think he looks like $1 million. Every time he comes out, you can just see the light bulbs going on and the work that he's doing. He's just natural, and it's fun to see. So I'm enjoying SmackDown and what WWE has been doing.
And I think something that we've talked about a long time, right? You kind of touched on it a little bit there. Forever and a day, WWE has been incredibly top heavy. It's been basically two guys at the very top, and then everybody else is at the bottom. Right now, we are talking about a multifaceted story where one side has Roman Reigns, the Usos, Solo Sikoa. You can even include Paul Heyman. That's 5 guys basically in the main event picture. Then on the other side, you've got Cody Rhodes, Sami Zayn, and Kevin Owens. That's 3 other guys in the main event picture. That is 8 people that are carrying multiple storylines and are all working at the very tippy top of the card. And any one of those guys, any night, can be your main eventer. Any night, any one of those guys can steal the show. Any night, any one of those guys are the guy. And I think that's fantastic because in WWE, we haven't had that since leading into the Attitude Era because Vince made changes. Vince basically said that from now on, I will never have one guy basically kind of hold that top card. I won't ever have just, he basically put a ceiling on it essentially, right? Everybody was basically an upper mid card guy. And that way he could just kind of interchange people because Stone Cold got hurt. The Rock got hurt. Shawn Michaels left. He was basically left with Bret Hart ended up rolling out. There were a lot of deflections and dissension going back to WCW. Vince was basically like a scorned lover and didn't have guys. Undertaker, I think, was injured at the time. So he didn't have all of his guys that he could just kind of plug in there. Right now, we're seeing multiple guys work at an incredibly high level and carry the top of the card, and it is fantastic. And any night, any one of those guys are the guy, and I think that's awesome. And you've seen this in basically the closing segment on SmackDown. You have Jey Uso in the ring. Sami Zayn comes out. And these two cut great promos on each other before it ends up breaking down. And I thought what Jey Uso said was fantastic. Like, Jey Uso let you in on what I felt was a little bit of his real life, right? A little bit of what he actually had going on. And then you have Sami Zayn saying, going back to that original story, the original story for the bloodline. Remember, Jey Uso was the one who would not acknowledge Roman Reigns. Jey Uso was the one who had to be put into a match to challenge for the championship, to beat Roman Reigns. If Roman Reigns beat him, Jey Uso would then have to acknowledge him. Of course, Roman Reigns ends up beating Jey Uso, and that's what kicked off this run. But going back and touching base on that storyline, touching base on what originally took place with Jey Uso and saying, hey, look, you are upset because you weren't the one who hit him with the chair. You're upset because you've been pushed around. You're upset because you didn't do what I did. You're upset because I was the first one to stand up to Roman Reigns, and you haven't, and you've been manipulated the entire time. You can change this if you want to. This, of course, breaks out into a brawl. What did you think of this segment? Obviously, Kevin Owens makes the save, but I thought this was one of those things where it really grabs at the heartstrings of this storyline and really kind of goes back to that original telling, the original thing that really kicked off the bloodline and which made parts of this so special, that foundational piece of Jey Uso not wanting to acknowledge Roman Reigns. I thought this went back to that and really pointed the finger at it and really highlighted some of the work that they had done almost 2 years ago. What did you make of this promo? Because I thought this was fantastic. This was a great way to close SmackDown.
It was. Obviously, the pop was huge. I think everybody loves the crowd, Kansas City crowd. Kudos to you. You did well. Everybody chanting, hug it out. It was great. Kevin Owens.
That was great.
That was great. Hug it out was great. The one thing I'll say, if you want to critique, I think Jey just doesn't come across yet as natural. You know what I mean? In terms of Sami, you can believe the story. Kevin, obviously, betrayal. Cody trying to reunite. Jey running with the whole "you betrayed me," it's good, but it's still not as believable as you would think, because you're like, okay, if you're the bloodline, you're Jey Uso. You obviously at first didn't want an outsider, and yeah, you let Sami and the Brotherhood come in, but I just think that the believability in terms of the way in which I don't think he needed to have all the facial expressions. You just need to be pissed. You need to be kind of just in that mode of I'm here to basically. It felt like a rehash, basically, kind of like when they do the when they start Raw and they do the rehash. It just kind of felt like that.
Yeah.
Like, okay, here's everybody. If you haven't tuned in, here's what's happened. Here's a recap, and Sami and Jey are going to recap everything for you. They could have did more to move it along, or basically Jay's like, look, we don't got to rehash this bullshit. I'm pissed at you, and every time I see you, I'm going to come and make your life a living hell. You don't get to join this and do what you did. It's basically, we didn't need the rehash. We needed the what's going to happen next, which would have been great from Jey. Would have been like, look, you're going to be in matches, and I want you to always have my name in the back of your head. You might be in great moments 20 years from now, and you might be at the Hall of Fame. You might have to just always look over your shoulder, because Jey Uso's never going to forget what you did. And you just keep planting that seed of, I'm going to kick your ass because you fucked up. You could have talked about what could have happened. You could have said, look, Sami, you could have been on the fast track to be the next leader. You could have been somebody that could have been successful. You could have actually won a title instead of being fodder for fans. You could have been something in this business instead of some mark. You could have just took it so away. Instead, it was kind of more of a recap of, you did this and I'm pissed. It's like, okay, you could have added a lot more to it and took it into the what the fuck I'm going to do to you because you fucked up kind of mode. And Jay just got to be a little more natural. It just comes across as he's acting with the facial expression. So, but it is kind of funny, though, that they keep falling into the traps and it leads to the question, why would you go to the ring against an Uso by yourself? So, but in the end, Kevin Owens comes out, he stands behind them, and the crowd goes apeshit. You get the faces getting over, and it worked out beautifully.
Yeah, it worked out really, really well. Do you think this part of the storyline would be more impactful if it was Jimmy instead of Jay? Remember, you have that lead up and that build to Jay embracing Sami Zayn. And then that kind of is the trigger. And I felt like WWE really hit the fast forward button because we were getting to WrestleMania, and they're like, man, this storyline has gone on for almost 18 months longer than we thought. Do you think it'd been more impactful if it was Jimmy in that ring instead of Jay?
See, I don't know.
Remember, Jimmy and Sami Zayn had that friendship. They had the handshake. They had everything.
I think it plays to the point that Jay is the weak link of the bloodline, the guy that would kind of be more emotional, and you would naturally go to somebody that's emotional because you believe that you can change him. So that's the story, which is, hey, Jay, leave the bloodline. Jimmy's never going to leave, ever. You don't believe that. Jay, you're starting to plant the seeds of, hey, are you going to be the guy that's getting pushed along? Basically, Sami's saying, look, I was treated like you were. You need to consider the fact that you're a pawn. And it does play into the fact that, remember, during the Thunderdome era, Jay got an opportunity and, got a match against Roman. So it's definitely a rehash, and I don't think it would have been kind of as believable with Jimmy.
Okay. I could see it. I don't know how we would end up getting to Jimmy because of where we came from with Jay. I think it would have been hard, but I do think at certain points it would be a little bit more, there would be more meat there if it was Jimmy instead of Jay. All that being said, there were two segments, one from Raw, one from SmackDown that I want to touch on. Like I said, I really felt like the majority of what we got this week from WWE was really carried and held down by Cody Rhodes, Kevin Owens, Roman Reigns, and the Bloodline. But on Monday Night Raw, we did have Brock Lesnar coming face-to-face with Omos. They had a moment in the ring. I thought Brock Lesnar did a good job selling what took place, but it looks really unbelievable. And Omos is so bad. Like he just isn't good. What was your take on we're going to call it the clothesline from hell, where Omos clotheslined Brock Lesnar and tried to get him out of the ring and really just basically took his armpit and shoved his armpit in Brock's face, and then he had to lift Brock Lesnar up and over the ring. And then Brock, like I said, I thought he did a good job selling on the outside that he was a little bit scared that he was manhandled by this 7'4", 7'7" giant. What did you make of this segment? Because I thought it was bad. I thought Brock Lesnar did a good job. Omos is just, I don't know if he'll ever be ready.
Yeah, it lends to the underlying belief that we're all scared of is how the fuck are you going to get these two in the ring to have any kind of match besides punches and stare downs?
If this match goes any longer than 5 minutes,
right, it's going to be.
And look, I'm counting on 3 minutes of this match being entrances.
Exactly.
If this match goes any longer than 5 minutes, I don't know what the hell we're in for.
Yeah, but some wrestlers online believe that it was Brock that was responsible for taking the bump and then flinging himself over the top rope. Look, in the end, it just didn't look like these two have chemistry in the ring, and basically that's what it lends to is, what kind of match are they going to have? It actually would have been just more beautiful if Brock stares down Omos and just walks away, nods a little bit, and walks off. You didn't even need any physicality because if you're going to introduce it, you don't want to basically validate all our concerns, which is this is going to be a shitty wrestling match. Keep the intrigue going because there was a moment there when Brock is staring down Omos that you're like, holy shit, Omos makes Brock look small.
So small.
So small. So you could have just hung on to that. Brock, all you have to do is you got to be subtle. You back away and you kind of lead people to go, wow, I thought that I was big and badass, but I'm staring at this guy. You just have Brock nod a little bit and then you keep it moving. And then next week you go, Brock, you seem to see Omos, and did you gain a little more respect standing in the ring from him? And then you say, yeah, you kind of then start the process of uplifting Omos next week. And then the go-home shows is when you do some stuff in the ring, just a couple kicks and stuff like that, some punches and shit like that. Obviously, what you would have done was, I think, Brock should be on the end of some ass whoopings all the way up until WrestleMania. A couple choke slams, a power bomb through the table. Kind of the belief of, hey, Omos is serious, because the idea would be, obviously, we don't know who's going over, but the idea would be, if this match is, going to happen, that Omos has to get some kind of rub moving forward. And so far, it just validates everyone's concern of, this is just some big dude that can't wrestle.
Yeah, and I think you're 100% right, because what we've seen didn't do anything to really hype that match, didn't do anything to really get you intrigued in that match, and didn't really do anything to put any of those fears that we have that this is going to be horrible to the side. If anything, it just kind of heightened all of that stuff. It exacerbated it and made it really feel like, I don't know what the hell we're going to get for WrestleMania. If anything, we're getting a night one match. This should probably be the second match that goes on. If there's going to be an undercard pre-show, it really feels like this should be on that. But you're not going to do that to Brock Lesnar, because Brock Lesnar is a major draw. There's no way this should go on before or go on after any of the women's matches. Even if there's something with damage control, and you know how we both feel about the damage control storyline, it's not very good. So it has been quite frustrating watching this build and watching this match, because I'm hoping that they don't give it a ton of time, because right now it doesn't really feel like it deserves a ton of time.
Yeah, well,
now, I want to get to something
wait, real fast. If I call this match, I would have it at WrestleMania, where Omos comes in and it's just a kick, some punches to the back, a power bomb, nothing serious, and then just kind of, you have to make him kind of look like Andre the Giant a little bit, which is just real plotting. Brock gets some moves in, a lot of no selling. You got to establish Omos as a badass, and then maybe near the end, if Brock does go over, you get a little surprise. But Brock should not be suplexing Omos. There should be no F5s. There should be some more physicality, more like MMA style. Get him to the ground, shots to the knee, a little bit more of the ground and pound, get him down, chops. You don't want to be making Omos look small, because the man's a monster. You want to be doing it like, hey, this is a big dude, and what do you do to big dudes? You chop him down. And Omos, kind of like how Andre the Giant would always get sold, like, hey, Omos going down would be something that is spectacular. What you don't want to have is, Omos stumbling to the ropes, and then Brock tries to clothesline him, and then you get that 3-second pause, and then Omos tries to fling himself over the ropes. You know what I mean? Don't make it look stupid. Make it look serious, and make Omos look like a monster, and keep it simple. You don't have to do a lot of selling. Omos needs to look like a monster, and if Brock comes back, he's got to do some crazy shit, but not in a way to make Omos look small.
Do you think that there's any chance that Brock Lesnar sells for Omos in this? Like, I feel like you have an opportunity here to really elevate Omos, but it comes at the expense of Brock Lesnar. It comes at the expense of Brock Lesnar losing this match and making Omos look as strong as possible. But I don't see that happening, because I believe Brock Lesnar would only do that for a guy he believes in. Right. Similar to John Cena. I feel like John Cena will only put over a guy that he believes in, and I don't think anybody believes in Omos. Only Vince.
I think it'd be great if they started adding like tables and chairs and violence to it. That'd be great if Brock sold for him. I just think it's going to be a lot of stiff punches and, Brock standing there. So we'll see. I'm curious to see if they salvage it, because right now everybody thinks it's going to be a shit show.
Yeah, it doesn't really feel like it has a whole lot of meat on the bone here for any of this. Now, something on SmackDown that I kind of wanted to get into, and this is what I've kind of seen play out over the last couple of weeks, and I'm wondering if you're seeing it with me. I don't think Charlotte Flair is really carrying her own weight with this feud with Rhea Ripley. Again, on SmackDown, we had another almost robotic, herky-jerky, I'm the champ, I'm the shit type promo from Charlotte Flair. Rhea comes down, and Rhea cut a really good promo. Like Charlotte Flair's promo, I was ready to tune out. Rhea comes down, cuts a really good promo, and it gets me re-engaged. And I'm like, Rhea is carrying this entire feud. Like, she is carrying this entire thing by herself. Charlotte is giving her nothing. Now, they brawl on the outside, and I'll be honest with you, watching that brawl on the outside, I thought Charlotte was working a little bit stiff. I think as you kind of watch it unfold, I think Rhea realizes that Charlotte's working a little bit stiff, and Rhea starts working a little bit stiff as well. So I don't know if there's any bad blood between the two, but what I'll tell you is I don't feel like Charlotte is carrying her own. I think Charlotte is getting shown up by Rhea Ripley. I don't know if Charlotte knows necessarily how to feel about it. I think that carried into some of the work that we got, where Charlotte was working stiffer than usual. And I think Rhea, it dawned on her like, hey, she's actually hitting and kicking me here. This shit is freaking hurting. And Rhea came back. It worked out to where it was a really nice melee on the outside. But again, I don't think Charlotte is doing her part, especially as the champion, especially being the so-called face of the women's division. I don't think she's doing her part. On top of that, when they were brawling on the outside, Charlotte punched an official. Like, there was an actual camera shot of her punching an official. How she doesn't get suspended or stripped of her title when you've done those same things to Sonya Deville doesn't make any sense to me. So it'll be interesting to see how WWE gets out of this, because that was a thing that took place. But what are your thoughts on Charlotte Flair and her build with Rhea Ripley towards this main event or towards this championship feud at WrestleMania?
Yeah, what you're saying is creative has stuck to the same old plan with Charlotte, which is I'm the queen, I'm the man, I show up. I liked the introduction. I thought it was well written about kind of the history of a Rhodes chasing and a Flair with a title. That was good. But I thought that creative is not doing enough to expand the Charlotte character. Meaning, okay, you got to maybe make it personal. Maybe you have Rhea have a match and Charlotte costs her a match. So you went with the angle of Charlotte doesn't fear her. Well, okay, what can you do outside of the ring? Some vignettes. What can you do to play that up a little bit? What can you do with Charlotte to go away from the traditional? Because here's the thing. Charlotte's been in the company now for so long that she's done this feud with everybody that she's been with, which is I'm the man, I'm the best. Okay, well, when you say that over and over and over again, it's boring and played out, so people want to see something different. So maybe a personal attack, maybe just saying like, look, Rhea, when you were coming up through the system, everybody thought you were special. I didn't see it. Personal. You could say, look, I just thought you were some sideshow freak. I don't see why anybody would fear you. You got to say something. You got to take shots. You say something, even a cheap shot, which is, look, you had to join up with this crew where you're the weakest link. We don't see any, look at Finn Balor, champion, Damian Priest, future of the company. Even this tool has lineage. What are you? And, some digs, person, you know what I mean? Something, but they're just...
That would have been good. That would have been interesting.
Exactly. What it is their creative is being lazy, which is we believe that Charlotte's the best and she's just going to keep saying it. And that's how you take a character who's elite and then you make them spectacular. Look, she's Charlotte Flair. There's a lot to it. So, but just keep saying that you're Charlotte Flair gets old. So creative needed to do a better job. And you're right. It's just not as good of a buildup that we know the top end creative people can do.
For sure. Let's switch gears. Let's go over to AEW. We kicked off Dynamite with MJF's bar mitzvah. I thought this was a fun segment. I thought this was great. This is MJF basically reveling in all of his douchebaggery. Thought it was awesome. He gets interrupted multiple times by Jungle Boy, by Sammy Guevara, by Darby Allin. And basically they did this homage to what we refer to as the four pillars of AEW. These are four guys who are homegrown guys. These are four guys who have all been a champion of some sort. These are all four guys who the projected fate of the company essentially lies in their hands. And I thought that was really, really nice. And I thought all of them basically proclaiming for a title shot at the same time was a nice touch. And you know how hard it is to get three guys to basically say the same thing at the same time. That is incredibly difficult. You have to have really good timing. They did that. I thought this was a nice build. I thought they each told a really nice story. Felt like Sammy Guevara and MJF went into a little work shoot which was pretty cool. Darby Allin basically told you a little bit about himself, which was really, really nice. I want to know, what was your take on this promo between these four guys? Who do you want to see MJF face off with next, whether it be Sammy Guevara, Jungle Boy, or Darby Allin?
It's a good question, man, because all three have their own. I think Darby Allin is the most kind of ready, but Sammy Guevara, I think, is next. It was just weird. Jungle Boy might not have fit into this group. Obviously, they have a history. I just think it's too soon. I would go with probably Darby Allin, but at the same time, they don't feel like it's pay-per-view ready yet to have on a main card. So I'm curious to see. I love that MJF first came out with the ladies. I thought it was great. It did kind of go on a little bit long in regards to everything that happened, but I'll say this. If MJF continues down this road, it's going to be great to see how the younger talent that challenges him take the next step by being in the feud with him. And I think Darby Allin would have no problem being in a match, being physical, and then taking the L. So I think it should be Darby Allin.
I could see Darby Allin. I just feel like at some point you've got to start to rehab Darby Allin's character a little bit. You got to be able to get him a couple of wins and make him more believable. At this point, I don't believe Darby Allin would necessarily be able to go the distance with MJF. I think physicality wise, obviously he can, because every one of his matches is a freaking car wreck. Sammy Guevara, I feel like, is preoccupied with other stuff with the JAS. So to me, by default, it leaves Jungle Boy. And I think they could tell an interesting story. I just don't know necessarily if that is headline material, if that's main event stuff, right? And that's just because of kind of where Jungle Boy has kind of been the last, year and a half. I don't really feel like Jungle Boy has necessarily headlined anything, much less getting out of the shadow of Christian Cage. So I'll be honest with you, I don't feel like any of these guys should necessarily be MJF's next feud, but if I had to pick one, I would say Jungle Boy. And again, it was by default. On AEW Dynamite, we did have Taya Valkyrie debut. Does she add anything to what feels like a rudderless women's division? I like her running in the ring. I like her face-to-face with Jade. These are two women who are big, physical. It looks like she's got a great personality, which I don't think we necessarily got to see when she was in NXT and in WWE. I just don't know. I really feel like this women's division is just kind of going by the wayside. I think when you look at what they've done with Jade, they've tried to make Jade into AEW's version of Goldberg, which is fine. You can do that. She's got a great look. I don't think her mic skills are fantastic, but in the ring, she's gotten better. She's gotten better each and every week. I think she is an interesting character. I think that what you have going on more in the main event picture with Britt Baker, with Jamie Hayter, with Saraya, Toni Storm, and Ruby Soho, I don't know necessarily where that's going. I don't necessarily like that story. I think they just got renamed as the Outcast. I don't feel like there's really any teeth there. I feel like you've got three whiny wrestlers being challenged by two wrestlers, and now you've got the undercard, not even like the mid-card, the undercard coming to back up the main eventers, which to me is weird when you've got Sky Blue, who I feel like deserves more, Willow Nightingale, who I feel like AEW missed a major spot with because the crowd was so behind her when she first showed up. And then you've got Rio, who is completely underutilized. You notice I did not mention Sheeta anywhere. I don't know where Sheeta is. I don't know where Sheeta's at. Sheeta is considered homegrown talent. I feel like Sheeta is that piece that you could add into the Jamie Hayter and the Britt Baker team and then get them to square off with Saraya's team. But again, I don't know where we're going. I don't know what we're doing with any of this. Adding Taya Valkyrie to this, I don't know if it makes it better or elevates it, because the women's division as a whole really seems like it's a bit of a dumpster fire. What are your thoughts on Taya Valkyrie's debut? What are your thoughts on her adding any worth to a women's division, which really feels undervalued and completely devalued at this time?
Yeah, you got to do a good job of moving the storyline along. She's believable. I think it's great coming off of her run in WWE. Her entrance was good. I mean, obviously, here's the thing. And it's going to also play into some of the talk that in terms of a preview for next week's Dynamite. you can't assume that everybody watches every promotion. You know what I mean? So the surprise, hey, here's this person, walks down, and the announcers who tell what's going on from to the audience at home. I think they should just invest in, when there's a new character, a couple vignettes. Hey, this is this person, a couple, not saying where they worked before, but this is a veteran, this is somebody new, a little bit about them, and boom, okay, then you have it. Just having them walk out kind of, gets you confused a little bit. Like, wait a minute, we've had a lot of WWE women show up on AEW, and it just kind of all blends together. You got to have something special. So,
I think that's a really good point you make, because the announcers, for as good as Excalibur is, right, and for everything that Taz adds to the announcing table, notice I did not mention Tony Schiavone. Notice I did not mention JR. They do a really piss poor job of getting excited and hyping a debuting wrestler. Yeah. It's like, oh, and here is Canadian superstar Taya Valkyrie. Okay, cool. Who the hell is she?
Right.
If you don't know, you don't know. They do play to the very smart AEW wrestling fan, which is fine. But as far as like people who don't watch other promotions, right? You and I both watch wrestling with people who don't have the knowledge that we have, right? Who haven't watched everything we have, right? Yours is your little girls that you watch wrestling with, and the one who runs around with a championship belt and tries power bombing the other one. Mine is my girlfriend, who just recently got into wrestling because I forced her to watch it 10 hours a week. So, you need to introduce and be able to get excited. Like, why is this a big deal? Why is this exciting? Tell me why I should care. They don't do a good enough job of telling me why I should care about stuff. They're like, oh, and here's this person. So really good point by you, and really good catch by you, because that is something that I feel is completely missing. I remember watching wrestling when we were kids, and there would be a debuting wrestler, and you would hear JR damn near stand up out of his seat, and him with his Bell's palsy just like freaking out, and he's drooling out of the one side, but he is so damn excited for whoever's coming down the entrance ramp that he's having a freak out moment. And it was great, and it was like, all right, cool, let's watch this. You don't get that from AEW, and I think that really adds to some of that production, and it really takes away from the debuting wrestler. You don't really put them in a good spot. You don't do a good enough job highlighting them.
Yeah, no,
I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's good, because, and the reason why it's highlighted is, I watch a lot of promotions, but I have no clue who El Hijo del Vikingo is. You know what I mean? I don't know his story. I don't know where he's from. Obviously, maybe Japan, Ring of Honor. I don't know. Maybe he was a different name or character. All of a sudden, it's like dream match. Kenny Omega's taking on El Hijo. And I'm like, okay, I don't really know who that is.
Why should I care, though?
Right, exactly. Why should I care? And who is this? Just a reminder. Maybe he was this person, and through just natural, moving forward and having ADD and doing other stuff, I don't know who this dude is. So, you got to do a better job of telling us, hey, this is a dream match, and here's why it's important. So and basically it's stale. Like some of the best WWE introductions were Mr. Perfect and all those promos, Razor Ramon, Demolition, a lot of the vignettes that get people ready. You got to mix in every 3 new arrivals. You got to have at least one vignette to kind of tell us who they are, So then AEW's not doing a good job of appealing to a broader audience.
Yeah, it just, I feel like there are things that they could do to ratchet things up and make things better. And specifically with the women's division, I don't feel like they have the best storylines. I don't feel like they get the time or the day, which is really, really unfortunate.
So fill me in. Who the hell is El Hijo? Why is this a dream match? So
he is a guy who was, I believe he was part of Lucha Underground, if I remember correctly.
Okay, exactly.
He's a guy who has worked in multiple Mexican promotions. He's supposed to be this awesome Mexican wrestler. I'll be honest with you, I've never seen him.
Exactly.
He was supposed to be part of that Face of the ladder match, but there was an issue with his visa, so he couldn't come over, so he was subbed out. He's supposed to be some guy who is incredible. I've never seen him. I can't really tell you anything about him. I seen his name and I was like, I don't know who this guy is. And you and I both watch a shit ton of wrestling.
Right, but we're not going down to Lucha Underground.
We just watch AEW, WWE. We watch almost everything.
Exactly, but we're not going down. We're not going down to Lucha Underground. Come on, just say it. You know what I mean? Like, we're not doing that. So it's come on.
And here's the thing: Lucha Underground was what, like 10 years ago, almost 7 years ago. Like, Lucha Underground was so long ago. Like, Lucha Underground was great, but dude, that was a long time ago. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't remember half the shit from Lucha Underground. Yeah. So it's just they do a bad job presenting guys. It's like he is supposed to be this awesome lucha libre wrestler, and he's done a ton of stuff in other promotions. AEW, I think, is trying to work on repairing, or maybe even AAA is working on repairing relationships with AEW after the whole Dragon Lee snafu, when Dragon Lee basically took the AAA championship belts off of FTR and then claimed that he was going to WWE and then relinquished his title. That whole thing was set up by Conan. So Conan is doing a lot of work to get things right with AEW after all of that. So he's coming from AAA, but he's worked in a bunch of other Mexican promotions, and he's supposed to be a guy. I don't know anything else really about him. I've not seen any of his matches, so I can't tell you. They should put like a hype video package together. Like AAA should give them material and be like, here, use this to hype him up and show some of his awesome high spots. Like, you know, if I was to put a video package together for Kenny Omega, he's got enough material in AEW that you could put it together. Or if you have a relationship with New Japan, some of his best work was in New Japan. Go grab some of that, and you could put a hype video together for Kenny Omega just like that. No big deal. So they need to do different things and utilize social media, but utilize it in the right way. Don't put a picture of a guy up and be like, oh, dream match. This guy's taking on this guy. Why should we care? Why? No, there's no reason. No reason. Or have Kenny Omega cut a promo and do a vignette with Kenny Omega talking about him and talking about how he's wanted to face him for eons and why it's important to him. Because when he was in AAA, he couldn't face him because injury or because something else or political reasons, anything. Give us something. They give us nothing. I don't know. It's frustrating. Something that wasn't frustrating, I thought this was a really nice main event that we ended up having. We had the Trios Trio match, and I thought that was fantastic. It was completely built around Chris Jericho and Kenny Omega. Speaking of Kenny Omega, I thought it was great. I thought them working together against Brody King was awesome. I thought, again, Brody King made to look like an absolute superstar in this match. I thought this was great. This match ends up breaking down after the House of Black wins the match. We end up having guys brawl from the back, come down to the ring, and that includes Hangman Page as him and the Blackpool Combat Club are fighting. Hangman Page, in the end, standing in the middle of the ring, and Blackpool Combat Club is converging on the ring. They slide in, they get up, and they're basically face-to-face, only for Hangman Page to be backed up by the Elite. Thought this was awesome. We've been waiting for this. We've talked about this for a while. What is your excitement level for the Elite backing up Hangman Page? Do we have them coming back together? There is a video floating around on Twitter. You can go and find it. It shows what took place after the match ended. And basically what happened was Blackpool Combat Club exited the ring because we went off air. Blackpool Combat Club exited the ring. You've seen that. We fade to black. Then what happens is Hangman turns around and realizes that Kenny Omega's got his back and that the Young Bucks have his back. Kenny Omega is the first one to exit the ring, looking irritated at Hangman Page, stands there and waits for the Young Bucks, who eventually exit the ring. And it was a nice drawback to that original story where the Bucks didn't necessarily want to let Hangman go, but Kenny was like, we're doing this, and this is what we're doing, and this is why we're doing this, and basically forced the Bucks' hands. So the Bucks obviously have a connection with Hangman Page and have for a while Hangman Page and Kenny Omega have butted heads in the past. What is your excitement level for this, and how cool was this to see, and how cool was this to give you an actual cliffhanger to go off the air with?
It was great. Yeah, obviously I thought the Canadians held their own. They were into the match. Everything was great. I was definitely impressed with everything going on. And obviously, it'll be great to see a reunion of the Friends of the Elite. Yes, done great. And also remember, too, House of Black getting over. So they're getting the rub, which is the intended consequence of working with legends. It was great because it brought back, obviously, everybody loves seeing Jericho Omega, hearkening back to Japan and everything that they went through a couple years ago. So everything that they did, I thought, was spectacular in the main event. And it left, obviously, a cliffhanger for us to want to go back to and see what moves forward. So I'm excited to see how it plays out moving forward. I still think, though, Kenny Omega needs to kind of step out from the shadows and kind of be more than what he is. That's just my note, is that Kenny Omega is a star, and they still kind of are using him below a lot of the top storylines. It's time. Kenny Omega is a top draw. Let's get back to some serious business here.
Yeah. And look, I think at a certain point, we kind of talked about it, right? We have to do something with the Bucks, and we have to do something with Kenny. Like, they feel like they need to be on a higher level doing other things. And removing them from the Trios Championship, I think, allows them a little bit of flexibility, allows them to do different things. And I think this could be the direction that we head for the next couple months. I don't necessarily know what is in store for the House of Black going forward, though. I don't know how you come back and revisit a feud with JAS after this. I don't know how you come back and revisit a feud with the Elite. I don't know necessarily where they go. This is part of the problem, I think, with introducing trios belts. I don't necessarily know if you have enough trios teams to compete for those belts. So it's like putting belts in a basically a pool of 5 teams, and you're like, all right, cool, whoever wins, let's go. It just doesn't necessarily give me any direction for where those belts are going to go in the future. But again, I thought House of Black looked good. I think this is a fantastic storyline for the Elite and for Hangman Page. I thought this was really, really nice. What was your show of the week?
My show of the week, I feel, was highlighted by one of the great promos you're going to see leading up to WrestleMania. I thought it was Raw. I thought a lot of good things were set up, which allowed them to play off of it for the rest of the week. So for me, it was Raw.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. I thought Raw really laid the blueprint for what we ended up getting on Friday night. And I thought there was a lot of really good stuff and a lot of stuff that you could take away from Monday Night Raw that not just fed into what we got for the 3 hours for Raw, but also fed into the next 2 hours on Friday night. So I'm going to give it to Raw as well. Would you like some news and notes? Because I got a lot.
Hit me with this week's professional wrestling news and notes. What made your list?
A possible WWE match for WrestleMania is in limbo. Reports emerged from Fightful on Monday after Bray Wyatt missed the Madison Square Garden house show this weekend. WWE's creative team was told he's been out of action and off the road due to an illness. I heard it was a finger issue, but they're saying it's an illness, so nobody really knows what's going on. Speaking on Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Meltzer said, "From what I understand, the match is still on for WrestleMania, and he should be back very soon. That's pretty much all I can say. There is something to it, but I'm not at liberty to discuss it. As far as I know, everything I've been told is that it's not a creative issue or anything like that. The original WrestleMania plan was for Bray Wyatt for a match against Brock Lesnar, but Lesnar obviously rejected it and approved a match between himself and Omos. There was no mention of Wyatt, Lashley, or their match on Monday's episode of Raw. So that was a little bit interesting, especially since we're 2 weeks away. A guy in line for a rumor post-WrestleMania push is LA Knight. After doing the best with a bad situation in the Mountain Dew Lights Out match against Bray Wyatt, Knight has done a good job getting heel heat. However, he got a major babyface ovation at the recent MSG house show. WWE heard this and the plan is to give LA Knight a push post WrestleMania 39. If there's ever a crowd that they listen to, it is the crowd at MSG, and MSG was behind LA Knight this past weekend. Major news for John Cena at SummerSlam this year. Could he face off against someone he was rumored to fight at WrestleMania 39? In an update with Give Me Sports, WrestleVotes has noted that a match against Logan Paul is currently very much on the table for SummerSlam, due to Logan loving the idea and Cena being very much down. They said Logan loved the idea and Cena was totally down with it. They have made mega money, and it's just a matter of when. They want to tell a good story because they're megastars, so there's got to be a reason. This match is very much on the table, even at SummerSlam. All parties involved want to do it. This would make sense since both parties have been on record of saying they would love to mix it up together. Now, the Bella Twins are done and moving on to something new. The Bella Twins announced on Tuesday that they were leaving WWE and they would officially be known by their real names, Nikki and Brie Garcia, moving forward. This followed the announcement of a brand new show hosted by WWE Hall of Famers on Sirius XM. The duo was welcomed to Freedom by Saraya of AEW. This led to some back and forth with fans on Twitter, because of course it did. The leaving of WWE and shedding of the Bella moniker should not be a surprise. Around the Royal Rumble, the Twins had some harsh words for WWE and their creative. They even opted out of the Royal Rumble because of the way that they felt the women were being utilized. Sounds like a lot of unhappy campers in AEW. There's a lot to get into here. I'm going to take a quick drink of water before we delve into this, because I'm pretty sure there's a Meltzer comment in here, and you know how Meltzer speaks, so give me 1 second here. While discussing the Darby Allin promo from the MJF segment on Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Meltzer stated that there are several AEW stars that do not want to be part of the company, with many not shy of the fact, as Darby pointed out in his promo. Meltzer spoke of Darby's promo and the problem addressing it on TV Presents. With the whole thing of Darby Allin talking about all these guys complain, all these guys want to leave, and everything like that. Okay, that's true. But to talk about it on your own television show, basically by doing that, you're telling people you're the secondary company. We've seen this since May, when this really started happening, and it's done the company no good. Meltzer pointed to two things for unhappy AEW talent, stating that it's a combination of lack of fear of repercussions, as well as a poor attitude from select ex-WWE talent being the issue. Meltzer explained, saying, one of the weaknesses with AEW, two things. Number one is that it's not so much of the talent complains publicly, which makes the company look really bad because there's no fear. The people who don't want to be there and sign contracts because they didn't think WWE wanted them, and then they had, some people have the WWE attitude coming in and some people don't. Some people from WWE are tremendous assets to the company, and some people have been anything but that, and it's a case-by-case basis. So basically, Darby Allin told a little bit of truth and probably didn't need to go there, because I think Dave's right. It does kind of make the company look bad. We talk about people who don't want to be there. All right, moving on. It was a long Dave Meltzer promo, and you know how Dave Meltzer speaks. It's weird. Could this long-term injured wrestler make an appearance at WrestleMania? So this is some good news. Big E hasn't wrestled since suffering a fracture to his C1 and C6 vertebrae on March 11th edition of SmackDown. This was back in 2022, so it's been over a year now. He has, however, been involved in WWE's recruitment and development program. Writing in the current issue of Wrestling Observer newsletter, Dave Meltzer revealed that Big E could be returning, writing, I don't think if anything will come of this or if Kingston's injury changes this, but we had heard of an idea for E to be at WrestleMania, and the three of them would come out together. If that would be the right thing to do, and if E could come back soon. Man, he even writes weird. Kofi Kingston is set to get surgery following an ankle injury that has written him off TV. Kofi posted some recent pictures on his Twitter. His ankle looks gnarly. It looks like it's a bad ankle break. I don't think this is going to happen, but fingers are crossed that we get to see Big E very, very soon. Has WWE lost a huge draw? Wade Barrett said in an interview earlier this week that his role on SmackDown's commentary team is as permanent as you can ever be in a role in WWE, despite the initial belief months ago that he was just a temporary replacement until Pat McAfee returned. Taking to Twitter and on his account on the Holy Stone Cold Steve Austin celebration day of March 16th, Pat McAfee wrote, a lot of wrestling chatter about me right now. I think about wrestling every day. That dream isn't done. My business is currently rather active and existent. I think that's the right word. Extant? I don't know. Plus a baby on the way. Timing is everything. I still have massive plans for my journey to the WWE Hall of Fame someday. Believe that. So it sounds like Pat McAfee is going to be taking some time away. If you watch the Pat McAfee show like you and I do, he's had a lot of things going on. There sounds like there's some good things for his business. There are some other things that are going on with his show, and he's got to kind of figure those things out. As far as wrestling goes, it sounds like he's going to take some time away. He is not going to be part of the commentary team, at least not for now. They might do things where they bring him in for special occasions like they did for the Royal Rumble. Maybe he'll be present at WrestleMania. I think Pat McAfee is great. He's entertaining. I found watching him at WrestleMania was fantastic, but you could tell he hadn't been keeping up with the product. Obviously, doing stuff with his show. At the time, he was doing stuff with college football and ESPN, as well as other things going on with the NFL. So his time very, very split up, and it's hard to keep pace with just WWE, which is at least 5 hours of wrestling every week. It's hard to do that and make time for that when you have other things pulling you in other directions. So it sounds like Pat's going to take some time away. They may, like I said, bring him in for WrestleMania. I don't know if that's a good idea because as good as him and Michael Cole are together, Michael Cole usually has to lead Pat, and Pat has no idea what's going on. It's hard for him to kind of play off of that. There were even points at the Royal Rumble where he was like, I don't even know what's going on with this. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Pat McAfee. You know WWE's going to welcome him back because dude is a megastar. Dude is entertaining. I think this speaks volumes. Again, my girlfriend enjoys wrestling, new wrestling fan. She says that she is not as into SmackDown because Pat McAfee is not there, because he is that damn entertaining. So that tells you a lot about what he brings to the table. We'll see how it plays out. That's going to do it for this week's wrestling news and notes.
Make sure you follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. If you've agreed or disagreed with anything that we said this week on the DocNJock Wrestling Podcast, hit us up. Let us know. Always enjoy engaging with the supporters. And if you're interested in a nice little wrestling beef, Kenny got at it with Adam, so it was real interesting going back and forth. I'm like, oh my God, you guys are blowing up my phone talking about shows and Lions, and it was kind of a blending of the worlds there. I was almost going to tweet them both and saying, okay, guys, get in the ring and hash it out. Feel like those two were like a minute away from cutting a promo on each other. So that was good to see. Feel free. Let us know. We can take disagreements. If you're a big fan of Omos and Brock Lesnar and you want to see that match, let us know. We'll try to figure out why. But we're definitely interested in hearing what wrestling fans have to say about everything in the world of professional wrestling. Anywhere that you listen to your favorite broadcast, just type in Detroit Sports Podcast and our content will find you. Can't wait to break down another great week of professional wrestling on the next edition of the DocNJock Wrestling Podcast.